I was standing in the back office of my clothing boutique in downtown Atlanta, staring at my computer screen, when my entire world collapsed in a single moment. The bank notification glowed on my phone. Account balance, $247.89. Just yesterday, it had been $68,340. My hands started trembling. I clicked refresh, again and again. The number didn't change. My emergency fund, my safety net, everything I'd saved over 15 years of running this business, gone. "Tom!" I screamed, my voice cracking. "Tom, get in here right now!" My husband rushed through the door, his face pale even before he saw mine. And in that instant, I knew. I knew from the guilt written across his features, from the way he couldn't meet my eyes, from the slight tremor in his hands. "Sarah, I can explain," he stammered. But I was already pulling up the transaction history. There was a wire transfer for $68,092.51, authorized at 11:47 p.m. the previous night, sent to an account I'd never seen before, an account that belonged to someone named Marcus Kellerman with an address in the Cayman Islands. I felt my knees buckle. Tom caught me before I hit the floor, but I pushed him away. "What did you do?" I whispered. "Tom, what did you do?" He sank into the chair across from me, his head in his hands. And then he told me the story that would change everything. Let me back up for a moment because you need to understand how we got here. My name is Sarah Martinez. I'm 48 years old, and for the past 18 years, I've owned and operated a boutique called Bella Vista in the heart of Atlanta's Virginia Highland neighborhood. It's not a large store, just 200 square feet of carefully curated women's clothing, accessories, and jewelry. But it's mine. Every rack, every display, every relationship with every vendor, I built it all from nothing. Tom and I met in college, and he was studying accounting, and I was in the fashion merchandising program at Georgia State. We married young, had our 2 children, Michael and Elena, and poured everything we had into building a good life for them. Tom worked as a CFO for a mid-sized manufacturing company, and I opened Bella Vista when Michael was 3 and Elena was just 1 year old. For years, we were comfortable. Not wealthy, but stable. We paid our mortgage on time, took modest vacations to Savannah or the Florida coast, helped with the kids' college funds. Tom was the numbers person, always cautious, always calculating risk. I was the dreamer, the one who believed in taking chances on unique inventory, investing in customer relationships, creating experiences rather than just transactions. But over the past 3 years, everything has been changing. Online retailers were eating into my profits. Big box stores were undercutting my prices. COVID had devastated foot traffic, and even though we'd bounced back, it wasn't the same. Younger customers wanted fast fashion delivered to their doors. Older customers were tightening their budgets as inflation climbed. I worked harder than ever, extending hours, hosting events, building an online presence, but the margins kept shrinking. Some months, we barely broke even. Other months, we dipped into savings to cover payroll for my 2 part-time employees, Janine and Keisha. Tom felt the pressure too. His company had gone through restructuring. His salary had been frozen for 2 years. The weight of being the stable income while I struggled with a faltering business was crushing him. I could see it in the way his shoulders slumped when he came home, in the silence during dinner, in the spreadsheets he'd stay up late reviewing, trying to find money that wasn't there. Then, about 4 months ago, Tom mentioned something at dinner. "I met someone interesting today," he said, pushing his mashed potatoes around his plate. "A financial advisor named Marcus Kellerman. He works with small business owners and individuals looking to, maximize returns on modest investments." I looked up from my phone, where I'd been answering a customer email. "What do you mean, maximize returns?" "Well," Tom said, his voice gaining enthusiasm, he explained that there are certain investment vehicles, legitimate ones, that most people don't know about. Things that can generate 15–20% returns in just a few months. I frowned. "Tom, That sounds like, it's not a scam. He interrupted quickly. Marcus showed me his credentials. He's licensed. He's got testimonials from people right here in Atlanta. Business owners like you who were struggling and turned things around with his help. 15% in a few months? I said skeptically. Tom, if it sounds too good to be true. I know, he said, waving his hand dismissively. But Sarah, we're drowning here. You're working 70 hours a week and we're still falling behind. The boutique's emergency fund is the only thing keeping us afloat, and if we keep dipping into it the way we have been, it'll be gone in a year anyway. I set my phone down. What exactly is he suggesting? Tom hesitated. He wants us to invest $50,000, says he can turn it into $65,000 in 90 days. We get our principal back plus earnings, and we could roll it over if we wanted to continue. $50,000, Tom? That's our entire safety net. I know, but think about it. An extra 15 grand would give us breathing room. We could pay down some debt, reinvest in the store, actually take a vacation without worrying. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe that there was an easy solution to our problems. But something in my gut told me this was wrong. Let me meet this Marcus, I said finally. If you're serious about this, I need to look him in the eye. Tom smiled for the first time in weeks. Okay, I'll set up a meeting. We met Marcus Kellerman the following week at a sleek coffee shop in Buckhead. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with perfectly styled hair, an expensive suit, and the kind of confident smile that probably charmed everyone he met. Sarah, he said, standing to shake my hand. His grip was firm. His eye contact was steady. Tom's told me so much about you and your boutique. Bella Vista, right? I actually walked past it last week. Beautiful storefront. Thank you, I said cautiously, sliding into the booth across from him. For the next hour, Marcus talked. And I have to admit, he was good. He didn't use high-pressure tactics. He didn't make outrageous promises. Instead, he spoke in calm, measured tones about alternative investment strategies and private equity opportunities that were underutilized by the average American investor. He showed us documents, glossy brochures with charts and graphs, testimonials from supposed clients, certification numbers that looked official. He explained that his firm worked with overseas accounts to take advantage of favorable tax structures, and that's why the returns were so high. I'm not going to lie to you, Marcus said, leaning forward. This isn't for everyone. It requires trust, and it requires a willingness to think outside the traditional banking system. But Sarah, Tom, I've seen dozens of couples in your exact situation. Hardworking, honest people who are one emergency away from losing everything they've built, and I've helped them turn it around. What's the risk? I asked directly. Marcus smiled. Every investment carries risk, but the risk here is minimal compared to the potential reward. The worst-case scenario? You get your principal back, but no returns. That's only happened twice in my 5 years doing this, and both times it was because of unexpected regulatory changes in foreign markets. And the best-case scenario? You make 15 to 20% in 90 days, and you have the option to continue or cash out. I looked at Tom. His eyes were bright with hope, something I hadn't seen in so long. He wanted this. He needed this. And honestly, so did I. Can we think about it? I asked. Of course, Marcus said smoothly. Take all the time you need. But I'll be honest, I only take on 4 new clients per quarter, and I've got 2 spots left for this cycle. I'd hate for you to miss out. The manufactured scarcity. The pressure disguised as friendly advice. Looking back, I should have seen all the red flags, but in that moment, sitting across from a man who seemed to have all the answers, I let hope to override my judgment. We talked about it for 2 more weeks. Tom researched Marcus online and found a professional-looking website, some positive reviews that now I realize were probably fake, and a business license that appeared legitimate. We prayed about it. We made lists of pros and cons, and finally, Exhausted and desperate, we agreed to do it. The transfer was supposed to happen through our business account at First Southern Bank. Marcus had sent detailed instructions. We needed to wire the funds into a holding account in the Cayman Islands, which would then be moved into the investment vehicle within 48 hours. Why the Cayman Islands? I asked Tom the night before we were scheduled to make the transfer. Tax advantages, Tom said, repeating what Marcus had told him. It's completely legal. Lots of international businesses structure things this way. I nodded, but my stomach was churning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Tom, listening to him breathe, thinking about 18 years of work that had been distilled down to $68,000 in a bank account. It was everything. If this went wrong. But it wouldn't go wrong. Marcus was legitimate. Tom had done his research. This was going to work. At 11:30 p.m., I heard Tom get up. I pretended to be asleep as he crept downstairs to his home office. I heard the soft click of his laptop opening, the faint beeping of our security system as he disarmed it to keep it from logging his activity. Something at that moment felt wrong. Why was he doing this in the middle of the night? Why hadn't he waited until morning when we could go to the bank together? I got up quietly and stood in the hallway outside his office. Through the crack in the door, I could see him hunched over his desk, his face illuminated by the computer screen. He was on the bank's website, navigating through the wire transfer interface. $68.90.51, I heard him mutter to himself. Account number 7843KL8821. Routing number? My heart started pounding. He was doing it. Right now. Without telling me. Without waiting for morning light and clearer heads. I should have burst in. I should have stopped him. But instead, I stood frozen in the hallway, paralyzed by a toxic mixture of trust, fear, and the desperate hope that maybe this would solve everything. I heard him click a button, then another, and then a long, terrible silence. "Oh, God," Tom whispered. "Oh, God, no, 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 no." That's when I pushed the door open. Tom was staring at his screen, his face drained of all color. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely control the mouse. "Tom, what happened?" He couldn't speak. He just pointed at the screen. The wire transfer had gone through, but the account number was wrong. In his nervousness, in his exhaustion, in the dim light and the stress of what he was doing, Tom had mistyped a single digit. Instead of sending the money to account 7843KL8821, he'd sent it to 7843KL8221. The money was gone, vanished into some unknown account in the Cayman Islands. An account that wasn't Marcus Kellerman's, an account that belonged to God knows who. I don't remember much about the rest of that night. I know I screamed. I know Tom called Marcus immediately, and Marcus, surprise, surprise, didn't answer. I know we spent hours on the phone with the bank's fraud department, who told us that wire transfers to foreign accounts are almost never reversible, especially when the transfer was authorized by us, even if the account number was incorrect. "You sent the money willingly," the fraud specialist said in a tired voice. "Even though it went to the wrong account, you initiated the transaction. That makes it nearly impossible to classify as fraud. But we were tricked," I shouted at the phone. "This Marcus Kellerman person, he set us up." "Ma'am, do you have evidence of that? Because without proof of intentional fraud or identity theft, your bank's wire transfer policy, which you agreed to when you opened your business account, states that you bear responsibility for ensuring account information is correct before authorizing a transfer." I hung up and slumped against the wall. Elena, who'd come downstairs when she heard the commotion, was crying. Tom was pacing like a caged animal, alternating between apologizing and raging against Marcus, against himself, against the universe. And me, I felt numb, empty. Like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped out everything. That made me human. The boutique, my dream, 18 years of work. Gone because we'd been desperate, because we'd been foolish, because we'd believed that someone we barely knew could solve all our problems with a simple investment. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to let this destroy us. I couldn't. That's where most stories end, right? The tragic tale of a family who lost everything to a scam, a cautionary tale about greed and desperation. But this isn't where my story ends. This is where it begins. Because when you hit rock bottom, you have two choices: stay there and let it consume you, or start climbing. And I didn't build Bella Vista by giving up. The first thing I did was call an emergency meeting with Janine and Keisha at the boutique. I had to be honest with them about our financial situation because they deserved to know whether their jobs were secure. "I'm not going to lie to you," I said, my voice steady even though I was breaking inside. "We've had a major financial setback. My husband and I made a terrible mistake, and we've lost most of our emergency reserves. I can guarantee your paychecks for this month, but after that, I honestly don't know what's going to happen." To my surprise, neither of them quit. Instead, Janine, who'd been with me for 12 years, said something that changed everything. "Sarah, we've all made mistakes. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" What was I going to do about it? I went home that night and I did something I hadn't done in months. I went through every single insurance policy, every financial document, every contract related to the boutique and our personal finances. I stayed up until 3 in the morning, reading fine print, making notes, looking for anything that could help us survive this. And that's when I found it. Buried in our business insurance policy, in a section I'd barely glanced at when we'd purchased it 5 years ago, was a clause about business interruption coverage. Business interruption insurance is designed to compensate a business for lost income when operations are disrupted due to a covered event. Most people think of it in terms of natural disasters, a fire, a flood, something that physically prevents you from operating. But our policy had broader language. It covered significant financial disruptions that prevent normal business operations. Could this qualify? The loss of our emergency fund had directly impacted on my ability to operate the boutique. I'd already cut my own salary to zero to pay Janine and Keisha. I was falling behind on inventory orders. Normal business operations were absolutely disrupted. I called our insurance agent, a woman named Patricia Chen who worked for Alliant Insurance, first thing in the morning. "Patricia, I need you to look at my policy very carefully," I said. "Specifically, the business interruption coverage. I've had a financial emergency that's affecting my ability to keep the store running normally, and I need to know if I can file a claim." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Sarah, business interruption usually requires a physical event. Our policy says significant financial disruptions," I interrupted. "It doesn't specify physical damage. Can you double-check the exact language?" She put me on hold. 5 minutes later, she came back on the line and I could hear the surprise in her voice. "You're right," she said. "Your policy is actually one of our older commercial plans, and the language is broader than what we typically offer now. If you can document that your business operations have been significantly disrupted due to a financial loss, you might qualify for a claim. I'll need you to send me." I didn't let her finish. "I'll have everything to you by end of business today." I spent the entire day compiling documentation, bank statements showing the wire transfer and the decimated account. Payroll records prove I'd cut my own salary. Emails to vendors explaining that I needed extended payment terms. Photos of empty shelves in the boutique because I couldn't afford to restock. Customer complaints about limited inventory. I submitted it all to Patricia with a cover letter explaining what had happened, taking full responsibility for our mistake, but also making it clear that this had created a genuine business crisis. 2 weeks later, I got the call. "Sarah, I'm not going to lie. This was a tough sell to our underwriters," Patricia said, "but they've agreed to approve a limited business interruption claim. They're going to pay you $12,000 to compensate you for lost income over the next 90 days, which should help stabilize your operations while you recover." $12,000. It wasn't everything we'd lost. It wasn't even close. But it was oxygen. It was enough to keep the doors open, to pay my employees, to buy some breathing room. I actually cried on the phone. "Patricia, thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me," she said gently. "Thank you for actually reading your policy and knowing what you were covered for. Most business owners have no idea what their insurance actually does until it's too late. That $12,000 bought me time, but time was only valuable if I used it wisely." I called a meeting with our landlord, Robert Morrison, who owned the entire building where Bella Vista was located. Robert was in his 60s, a retired real estate developer who'd always been fair with me. "Robert, I need to talk to you about our lease," I said, sitting across from him in his office. "I'm in a difficult financial situation and I need some flexibility." I laid out everything. The scam, the lost money, the insurance claim that would help but wasn't enough. I didn't beg. I didn't plead for charity. Instead, I presented him with a proposal. "Our lease is up for renewal in 4 months," I said. "I want to renew for another 3 years, but I need you to give me a 60-day grace period on rent right now. I'll pay you back every penny. Within 6 months, with interest if you want, but I need this grace period to get stabilized." Robert studied me for a long moment. "Sarah, why should I trust that you'll be able to pay me back?" "Because I've been here for 18 years, I said quietly. "I've never missed a rent payment. I've maintained the property. I've brought foot traffic to this building that benefits the other tenants. And I'm not asking for forgiveness, I'm asking for time. Insurance companies offer grace periods on premiums for this exact reason. Life happens, and good people need flexibility to recover." Robert sat back in his chair. "What's your plan? Beyond the grace period?" "I'm restructuring everything," I said. "I'm going to focus on my most profitable inventory, high-quality, unique pieces that I can't get undercut on by online retailers. I'm partnering with local artisans to create exclusive lines. I'm building a more robust online presence, and I'm cutting every expense that doesn't directly generate revenue." "And if it doesn't work?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Then I'll close the boutique with dignity, fulfill my obligations to you and my employees, and move on. But Robert, I don't plan to fail." He was quiet for another moment. Then he extended his hand. "60 days grace period," he said. "No interest. But Sarah, don't make me regret this. You won't." Over the next month, I worked harder than I ever had in my life. And Tom, consumed with guilt and determination to make things right, stepped up in ways I'd never seen before. He took on a second job doing bookkeeping for small businesses in the evenings and on weekends. Every penny he earned went straight into rebuilding our emergency fund. He also started attending a financial recovery support group for people who'd been victims of fraud, where he learned that we weren't alone, that dozens of families in Atlanta had lost money to similar schemes in the past year. Together, we made a list of everything we owned that we could sell. Tom's vintage guitar collection that he'd been accumulating for years, gone. Sold to a music shop for $3,800. My grandmother's silver tea set that I'd inherited, consigned at an estate sale for $1,200. Our second car, which we really didn't need, sold privately for $7,500. It was painful. Every item felt like we were dismantling pieces of our life. But we needed the money, and we needed it fast. I also did something I'd never done before. I asked for help. I reached out to a woman named Maya Chen, who owned a boutique 2 blocks from mine. Maya and I had always been friendly rivals. We carried different styles and generally didn't compete for the same customers. But there was definitely an awareness between us about who was doing better. "Maya, I need your advice," I said when I walked into her store one afternoon. She looked surprised to see me. "Sarah, is everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "No, I'm in trouble, and I need someone who understands this business to tell me honestly whether I have a chance of surviving." To my surprise, Maya closed her store for lunch, and we talked for 2 hours. I told her everything: the scam, the financial crisis, my plan to restructure and focus on exclusive, high-margin inventory. "You're doing exactly what you should be doing," Maya said when I finished. "But Sarah, you need to stop trying to compete with online retailers on their terms. You can't win that game. What you can do is create an experience and a product line that they can't replicate." "What do you mean?" "Partner with me," she said. "We do a joint event, a trunk show featuring local designers and artisans. We promote it together, split the costs, bring in customers who might not normally shop at either of our stores. We make it an event, something special that makes people feel good about supporting local business." I stared at her. "You do that? Even though we're technical competitors?" Maya smiled. "Sarah, we're not competitors. We're both small businesses trying to survive in an ecosystem that's rigged against us. If we don't support each other, who will?" The trunk show was held on a Saturday in late October, right as the weather was starting to turn cool. Maya and I split the cost of advertising, decorations, and hiring a local musician to play acoustic guitar. We featured 8 local artisans: jewelry makers, handbag designers, a woman who created hand-painted scarves. We'd hoped for 50 people. We got nearly 200. The energy that day was incredible. Customers loved seeing the creators of the pieces they were buying. They loved hearing the stories behind each item, and most importantly, they loved feeling like they were part of something meaningful, supporting local business, local artists, local community. I made more profit that single day than I had in the previous 2 months combined. But more valuable than the money was the shift in my perspective. I'd been so focused on competing, on survival, on doing things the way I'd always done them, that I'd forgotten why I started Bella Vista in the first place: to create beautiful experiences for my customers, to build relationships, to be part of a community. That night, after we closed the boutique and counted the day's receipts, I sat down with Tom, and we finally had the conversation we'd been avoiding. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping us, and instead I nearly destroyed everything." "I know," I said softly, "and I forgive you. But Tom, we can never do something like that again. We can never let desperation make us forget who we are and what we value." "What do we value?" "Integrity," I said. "Hard work. Making smart decisions even when they're difficult. Planning for the future instead of hoping for miracles." Tom nodded. "I've learned something over the past few months. All those years I spent managing other people's money, I thought I understood finance. But I didn't understand the difference between being clever with numbers and being wise with resources." "What's the difference?" "Being clever is about finding shortcuts, maximizing returns, playing the system," he said. "Being wise is about building something sustainable, protecting what matters, accepting that real success takes time and patience." I reached across the table and took his hand. "We're going to be okay," I said. "It's going to take time, but we're going to be okay." Over the next year, everything slowly came together. The business interruption insurance gave us the breathing room we needed. The grace period from Robert allowed us to stabilize our cash flow. The trunk shows with Maya became a quarterly event that built a loyal community of customers who valued supporting local businesses. But more importantly, we completely restructured our finances, both personal and business, to ensure we'd never be vulnerable to something like this again. We worked with a real financial advisor this time, with proper credentials and a fee-only structure rather than commission-based, to rebuild our emergency fund and create a proper financial plan. We set up multiple layers of protection: life insurance to protect our family if something happened to either Tom or me, health insurance with lower deductibles so medical emergencies couldn't derail us, disability insurance that would replace our income if either of us became unable to work, and we even added critical illness insurance that would pay a lump sum if one of us was diagnosed with a serious condition. For the boutique, I secured proper business insurance with clear coverage for property damage, liability, and business interruption. I read every policy carefully, understanding exactly what was covered and what wasn't. I added an umbrella policy to protect our personal assets from business-related lawsuits. We also started working with an accountant named Alan Brooks, who'd been a friend of Tom's for years. Alan helped us understand the warning signs we'd missed with Marcus Kellerman, the pressure to act quickly, the offshore accounts, the too-good-to-be-true returns, the lack of regulatory oversight. The financial world is full of people like Marcus, Alan told us. They prey on honest people who are desperate and don't know enough about how legitimate investments work. The best defense is education and skepticism. I also learned about insurance policy clauses that most people never think about until they need them. For example, we added an inflation protection clause to our disability insurance, which meant that the benefits would automatically increase over time to keep pace with rising costs. We included a waiver of premium clause that would allow us to pause insurance payments if we faced hardship without losing coverage. We made sure every policy had clear exclusions clauses, so we'd never be surprised by what wasn't covered. And perhaps most importantly, we established a renewal process where every year we'd sit down with our insurance advisor and our accountant to review all our policies, make sure our coverage is still aligned with our needs, and update anything that has changed. 2 years after that terrible night when we lost nearly everything, Bella Vista was thriving. Not wealthy, but healthy. Not growing explosively, but growing steadily and sustainably. We'd paid back every penny of the grace period rent to Robert. We'd rebuild our emergency fund to 6 months of operating expenses, and we'd learned to never, ever touch it, except for genuine emergencies. Our relationship with our employees, our vendors, and our customers was stronger than ever because we'd been honest about our struggles and allowed them to be part of our recovery. Tom and I were different too, stronger, humbler, more aware of how quickly security can evaporate when you make poor decisions. One evening, we were closing up the boutique together, something Tom had started doing with me once a week, just to stay connected to the heart of what we'd built, when he said something that stuck with me. "You know what I learned from all this?" he asked. "What?" "That there are no shortcuts. Not real ones. Marcus Kellerman promised us 15% returns in 90 days, and we nearly lost everything chasing that promise. But the real return, the one that actually matters, came from doing things the right way, working hard, making smart decisions, building relationships, protecting what we have with proper insurance and planning. That's what creates lasting success." I smiled. It took losing everything to figure that out? For me? Yeah, apparently it did. He laughed, but there was sadness in it. I'm just grateful we got the chance to learn from it instead of having it destroy us completely. Now, looking back, I can see the lessons clearly. The insurance we had in place, both the business interruption coverage I didn't know I had and the additional policies we secured afterward, weren't just financial products. They were protection against life's uncertainties. They were the safety net that allowed us to take calculated risks without betting everything on a single outcome. Life insurance gave us peace of mind that if something happened to either Tom or me, our family would be financially secure and our children wouldn't inherit our debt. Health insurance meant that an unexpected illness or injury wouldn't bankrupt us the way it does for so many American families. Business interruption coverage proved its worth by literally saving Bella Vista when we couldn't generate normal revenue. Property insurance protected us from losses due to theft or damage, something we thankfully never needed, but knowing it was there reduced our anxiety. Liability insurance meant that if a customer ever sued us for a slip and fall or any other claim, we wouldn't lose everything we'd worked for. Disability insurance and critical illness insurance gave us protection against health events that could devastate our income. And the policy clauses, those boring details that most people skip, turned out to be crucial. The inflation protection clause ensured our coverage wouldn't become worthless over time. The waiver of premium clause gave us flexibility if we ever faced hardship again. Understanding the exclusions clause meant we were never surprised by gaps in coverage. The grace periods on payments prevented accidental lapses that could have left us unprotected at the worst possible moment. But beyond the insurance and the financial planning, the real lesson was about integrity. We could have tried other shortcuts. We could have declared bankruptcy and walked away from our obligations. We could have blamed Marcus and played the victim. We could have given up. Instead, we chose to honor our commitments to our landlord, our employees, our vendors, our customers, and most importantly, to each other. We chose to learn from our mistakes rather than be defined by it. We chose to build something sustainable rather than chase easy money. 3 years after the incident, something unexpected happened. I got a phone call from a detective with the Atlanta Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Detective Williams. I'm calling because your name came up in an investigation we've been conducting. Does the name Marcus Kellerman mean anything to you?" My heart started racing. Yes, he's the man who scammed us 3 years ago. I thought so. Mrs. Martinez, I need you to know that Marcus Kellerman wasn't his real name. The man you met with was actually named Daniel Foster, and he's been running investment fraud schemes across the Southeast for nearly a decade. We've finally built a case against him, and we're prosecuting. I sat down heavily. You caught him? We did. And Mrs. Martinez, in going through his records, we found documentation related to your husband's transfer. The account where your money ended up? It was one of Foster's accounts. The wrong account number your husband typed? It was actually the correct account number for Foster's actual operation. He'd given your husband the wrong number deliberately. A real account that existed but that he didn't control, knowing that people would panic when the money disappeared and wouldn't scrutinize the transaction details carefully. Wait, I said, my head spinning. You're saying Tom didn't make a mistake? That Marcus or Daniel or whatever his name is set us up to send money to the wrong account on purpose? Exactly. It's a variation on a classic scam. He creates panic and confusion which prevents victims from taking legal action because they think they made the error. It's actually quite sophisticated. Can we get our money back? There was a pause. I can't make any promises, Mrs. Martinez. Foster moved most of his proceeds offshore, and asset recovery in these cases is extremely difficult. But there will be a restitution phase of his trial, and you'll have the opportunity to file a claim. It might take years, and you might not recover everything, but there's at least a chance. After I hung up, I told Tom, and we had a long conversation about what this meant. If we get the money back, Tom said slowly, what should we do with it? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to put it in the emergency fund and never touch it. Part of me wants to donate it to help other fraud victims. Part of me wants to forget it ever existed. What if we split it, Tom suggested. A third to rebuild our personal savings, a third to invest back in the boutique, and a third to donate to a financial literacy program that teaches people how to spot scams. I smiled. That sounds like exactly the right answer. In the end, we recovered $41,000 through the restitution process. Not everything, but more than we'd dared to hope for. And we did exactly what Tom suggested, turning our loss into a legacy that could help others avoid the same mistake. So here's what I want you to understand. This story isn't about how Tom and I lost money to a scam. It's about what we did after. It's about learning that integrity and hard work matter more than clever schemes. It's about understanding that real financial security comes from protection, insurance, planning, knowledge, not from chasing high returns. It's about building something sustainable rather than something spectacular. It's about grace periods and business interruption coverage and disability insurance and all the boring, unglamorous financial tools that nobody wants to think about until they desperately need them. Most of all, it's about the fact that mistakes don't have to be the end of your story. They can be the beginning of wisdom. If you're watching this video, maybe you're in a situation similar to where we were 3 years ago. Maybe you're struggling financially. Maybe you're tempted by something that sounds too good to be true. Maybe you've already made a mistake and you think there's no way forward. I'm here to tell you, there is always a way forward. Protect yourself with proper insurance. Not just because I say so, but because life is unpredictable and protection is what allows you to take calculated risks without risking everything. Read your policies. Understand what you're covered for. Ask questions. Build relationships with professionals who can guide you, real professionals with credentials and reputations to protect, not smooth talkers with offshore accounts. Run your business with integrity. Pay your employees. Honor your commitments. Build relationships with your customers and your community. When you do things the right way, people will support you when times get hard. And most importantly, don't chase shortcuts. There aren't any. Real success, the kind that lasts, the kind you can be proud of, it takes time, patience, hard work, and wisdom. Today, Bella Vista is in its 20th year. We employ 4 people now. Janine and Keisha are still with me, plus 2 new part-timers. We've expanded our online presence. We do quarterly events with Maya and other local businesses. Our emergency fund is healthy. Our insurance coverage is comprehensive. Our relationship with our customers is stronger than ever. Tom left his corporate job last year and now works full-time doing financial planning for small businesses, with a specialty in helping entrepreneurs understand insurance and protection. He says that living through our crisis gave him insights he never could have gained from textbooks or professional training. Our kids, Michael and Elena, watched us go through the worst and come out the other side. They learned that their parents aren't perfect, that we make mistakes, but that we don't give up. I hope that lesson serves them well when they face their own challenges. As for me, I lock up the boutique every evening with a sense of pride and peace that I didn't have before, because now I know that what we've built isn't just a business, it's a testament to resilience, integrity, and the power of doing things the right way, even when the wrong way looks so much easier. One wrong transfer nearly destroyed everything, but it also taught us a lifetime of lessons that no amount of success could have provided, and that, more than any amount of money, is a return worth having. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a financial crisis that taught you valuable lessons? Have you been tempted by a too-good-to-be-true opportunity? Have you discovered the value of insurance or proper planning only when you desperately needed it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to avoid making the same mistake, or to find hope in their own difficult situation. And if this story resonated with you, if it gave you something to think about or helped you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. I share stories like this, real stories about real people navigating the challenges of business, family, and life, because I believe we learn best from each other's experiences. Every story matters. Every lesson matters. And together, we can build a community of people who support each other, learn from each other, and help each other create lives of integrity, wisdom, and lasting success. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, protect what matters, and remember, there are no shortcuts, but there is always a way forward.